What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Wednesday Night Mythic Conversations. Thank you all very much for joining me this evening. Had a big week last week, obviously, with the reveals of the Day 1 Legions configure. So kind of was in a bit of a funk trying to think about what to talk about tonight. And as I was kind of brainstorming, I was thinking about the Poxxus wave and my feelings on it, kind of the general feelings I've seen on it. And I couldn't help but remember that when the wave first got launched, it was popular and there was, a number of figures that were very well received. But I remember at the time there being almost like a general sense that it wasn't as mind-blowing parts-wise and so forth as some other waves. Certainly if we look at waves like Necronominus, which incredible amounts of new parts and new tooling in that, with a total revamp on the knights and the skeletons. Rising Suns, you got the new dwarf body, the new 2.0 stuff, the new barbarian. It's easy to look at the Poxxus wave and say it didn't give us a ton of new parts. It gave us brute scale, but it didn't give us a ton of new parts because a lot of the figures, specifically the 3 2.0 figures, they don't use any new body parts. And it's interesting because I've been playing around with this wave and I've been seeing people's customs and kit bashes. And I think this wave, pound for pound, is probably the best wave the studio's ever released from a customizing and swapping standpoint. So I thought that tonight would be a really fun show to just kind of kick it old school a little bit, right? When this show first started 175 plus episodes ago, it had a very customizing bent to it. That's very much what it was focused on. In the years since, obviously, with my role in the studio changing, it's become much more of a news, information, interview type show. But I wanted to kick it old school today, talk about customizing, talk about popping and swapping. And to get ready for that, I started doing some customs today, or some swaps, I should say. And I went crazy. I had so much fun. I put together what I think are some really cool designs, some stuff that literally anybody can do. I also went on and looked at the Cabal and found some of my favorite pictures that I've seen recently of people posting stuff using the Poxxus wave. So we're going to talk about all of that tonight. We're going to kick it old school. We are going to have a customizing conversations here on Mythic Conversations. Maybe if we want to kick it old school, let's do the original intro, right? Welcome to Mythic Conversations, the weekly show where we talk about all things Legions. As always, I am your host, Jeremy Gerard. I'm a Mythic Legions collector and customizer who also has the distinct privilege of being the director of sales and marketing for Four Horsemen Studios. That means that all the content that you see at Source Horseman is content that I help to bring you. If you want to see more of my work, you can certainly follow me on Instagram at Mythic Customs, where you can see a whole bunch of my custom work. Now let's get to the show. I used to say that every week. I had it memorized. Before we kick into the topic, a few things that I just want to go over, news type stuff. If you saw the afternoon show today, I had a lot of fun with that. Chris and George and Jim are actually on the way to China right now. So Diego and I took over the afternoon show. We had a lot of fun with that. We covered the news, but I'll do so here again, just in case there's anyone that may be watching my show that didn't watch the afternoon show. Few things that you want to be aware of. Diego did give a really exciting update on shipping for the in-stock sale. So this is the in-stock sale at storehorseman.com. Don't want to get confused with any other site. Storehorseman.com, the in-stock sale that we did at the end of February. When we did that sale, we said it's probably going to take 5 weeks or so through the end of March to get all those orders out. We knew it was going to be a big sale. That's why we, allocated that much time, as we said on the afternoon show today. It ended up being an even bigger sale than we expected. Just an incredible amount of order and a lot of complex orders. That's one of the things to keep in mind as well. When someone orders a single figure, that's very, very easy to get out. Even a normal wave, when the shipping team is shipping stuff from, say, like the Poxxus wave, there's only 10 figures in the wave. If you look at the amount of different figures that were available in this February in-stock sale, it's a larger amount of SKUs than we've ever put up for sale at one time in that quantity. So it just takes a lot of time. There were some orders that were multi-boxes. They were so big. That takes a while to pack. So it has taken a little bit longer. But the good news is the team is absolutely cranking. According to Diego, there's a chance that they could be all done shipping towards the beginning of next week. Who knows? That's what it's looking like right now. As we said this afternoon, of course, when we get all those orders out, we will post it on our social channels so everybody knows. Thank you all for your support of that sale and for your patience as the team works really, really hard. We are a small group. We are a small team. That's one of the things that's nice about Four Horsemen Studios is you're not buying from a faceless corporation that you don't know the people who are creating these figures, selling you these figures, packing these figures. Like, us. If you've come to any shows, you've hung out with us, you've talked to us. But the downside to not being a giant corporation, we're not Amazon. We don't have robots picking and packing this stuff for us. We should get that. It would be on brand, right? We have some cosmic robots in there. But no, we brought in some new resources, some additional resources to help, and it's going very well. Those should all be out very soon. Yes, there's a chance. Yes, that's right, Ken. I didn't give the shipping explosion. I'm going to save that for the afternoon show. I don't want to overdo it. Okay, let's see. Looking through the comments here, Jeremy and Diego rock today. Curtis said, yeah, it was a lot of fun. I'm going to have him on this show. He was a good guest. I enjoy talking to Diego. Have we scrapped the idea of evergreen builders? Yeah, absolutely. That was one of those things that gets said in a live interview that when you actually think about the idea, we don't make to order. The idea that we could ever have anything that is always in stock, it's just not a feasible type program, because we would constantly, like, as soon as something sells out, we would have to have more to replenish it immediately. And just the nature of our business, it's not something, keeping something evergreen is not really feasible for us to do. What that got converted into, Drew, was more reinforcements, where with some regularity, we did one last year. We just did one in February, where the plan was to release a series of new Legion Builder type figures that would hopefully replenish those ranks, reinforce those ranks, if you will, for your customizing and army building needs. But the idea of there always being stuff, always being Legion Builders in stock, the minute that they sell out, you'd have to replace them. And unfortunately, we can't snap our fingers and do that. Really wish we could. The ship, I did get pretty happy today when I hit the shipping button. So the other things, let's see what else is going on here. I brought this up today. The pre-order for the retailer wave, the retailers have to get us their orders by Friday. So what I said this afternoon is any retailer that has these available after Friday, it's diminishing stock. So if they have whatever, if they get 100 pre-orders for a figure and they order 200 of them, that additional 100, they're going to get 200 in their order. That additional 200, that number is going to start going down, because it's not like right now it's in that you can order as many as you want, because they're just going to order based on their pre-orders. Once those pre-orders are in, they're locked, and they're locked because we're going to place the order with the factory. We want these in hand quickly. We want these to be about 6 months from pre-order to delivery. So to do that, we need to place the order with the factory immediately, which means retailers need to lock in those orders. They need to get those in. So will some retailers order so many that once they arrive, they still have some? Of course, I guarantee that's going to happen. But inevitably, there are going to be some of these that maybe they underestimate demand. And once they arrive and people get them in hand, they're going to be very popular and very cool, and they're not going to be available. Remember, this wave being exclusive to retailers is not something we are going to carry at Source Horseman, Store Horseman. It's not something we're ever going to have at shows. So if you are like, I'll just pick these up at Legions Con, perhaps you could pick them up from a retailer that might be there, but we will not carry these. So this really is the chance. We love our retail partners. This is the chance to support them, to get out there and order the figures of these that you want. Many of them have them right now. I'll actually bring up the banner that has that. We have a page on our website at Source Horseman for our retailer partners. That's a list of the retailers. Find the one that you like. A lot of Legions fans already have a favorite retailer, or a couple retailers in some cases, that they pre-order from. Patronize those retailers, but do it in the next day or so they know what they need to order and they can place their orders accordingly. The other thing that I had mentioned this afternoon that is ending is the Intern for a Day lottery. So if you go to sourcehorseman.com/intern, you can apply to be chosen for the lottery to come on, Thursday, November 7th, to the Intern for a Day event at Four Horsemen Studios. If you've watched any of my shows in the past where we talk about this, you know that Intern for a Day is very near and dear to my heart. Absolutely love this event. It's going to be a wonderful year this year. It's always a wonderful year. There's no cost to enter. If you do get selected, it is $300 to come to the event. That covers both you and a guest that you can bring. If you don't want to bring a guest, it's the same price. So I always tell people, if you don't have someone to bring, reach out to someone in the cabal, get a buddy, bring somebody. I've seen some really cool people who bring a guest, bring a friend from the cabal over to the event as well. And it's that much more enjoyable because you get to share it together. So get this in by the end of the day tomorrow, because we are going to close the entries for this and we're going to be pulling names probably in the next week or so. A lot of fun with that. Of course, if you enter, you are not obligated to purchase it. That's totally up to you. We also shared this afternoon, and I shared this morning. This is the teaser for something we are calling the Mysteries of Mythos. I'm not going to talk about exactly what this is today. We're not quite ready to pull the covers off of this yet. Been some wonderful guesses. I haven't seen anyone actually guess what this is, but there have been some wonderful guesses so far. Keep them coming. I very, very much enjoy them. And look out, because if everything goes according to plan, this will be something that we will be discussing next week. Very excited about that. So that's the stuff that's happening in the news. Let me go to the comments here and see what everyone's talking about. I still got the fun music in my head. Dave Orkin saying $300 is so worth it. Well, thank you very much. I mean, we literally close the studio for the entire day, and all of us are pretty much at your disposal, hanging out, answering questions, touring people around. It's a lot of fun. Awesome. Okay. Absolutely. All right. So let's talk about Poxxus. So as I said, I can remember when the Poxxus wave was how many people are pulled for the lottery. We don't actually answer that. We don't tell you what the number is. It's not a big one, I'll tell you that. When Poxxus first premiered, it first debuted, it was at G-Con in 2021, right? So it was a very interesting time, because that was a point where we were just coming off of the pandemic and everything. Shows were back in order. The 2020 G-Con for Alithia, if you remember, that was virtual. 2021, it was really cool. It was the first time that we had done G-Con and Legions Con together, like not virtually. So that was the year that the Sir Gerard figure came out. There's a lot of fondness. That was also really the year, and that was the weekend where the groundwork was laid for me to come on board with Four Horsemen Studios. That weekend really is where we started talking about me making the transition to full-time for real. After the event, we talked about it more, and then it was the beginning of 2022. So just, 2 months later where we solidified, and, I pretty much put in my notice to come full-time. So this wave was really one of the first things that I did where I was kind of almost like full-time, because when I went full-time, I was taking orders for the Poxxus wave and stuff. And I can remember that general sentiment that, like, these are cool. People really liked the fact that there were robed wizards. But again, there's a lot of people that they don't like the 2.0 bodies as much as the 1.0. I love the 2.0 bodies, but yeah, I like the 1.0 better as well. There's more of them. I've played with them more, so I enjoy them more. But again, looking at the stuff we got with the brutes and everything, it felt like a wave that a lot of people were a little cold on. And I remember at the time being very surprised because I loved this wave. Two of my favorite figures in the line up until that point and still today are in this wave, and that's Poxxus. Poxxus is my favorite of the Dark Four. Of all the designs in the Dark Four, he is my favorite by far. He was my favorite when I first started and I saw all the sketches of the Dark Four. Poxxus was the one I was most excited for. Calizair, possibly my favorite figure in the Mythic Legions line. I loved that figure from the moment I saw it. I told everybody, don't sleep on this figure. It is absolutely wonderful. The sense of validation that I've now seen with people getting in hand and people like Curtis saying, yeah, Jeremy absolutely told me that I was going to love this figure, and he was right. That was great to see. Of course, Arachagor, so many cool figures in this wave. But as I've been playing with it, I'm really enjoying the customization aspects of this particular wave. And I'm breaking down these figures and I'm realizing, goodness, there are so many parts in this. And I think that this is probably the first wave we've gotten, big wave like this, that really the abundance of parts in the figures is so much more than we've seen. Because we've seen a natural progression, right? The earliest figures, obviously, every single figure came with 3 weapons, 1 belt. It was almost unusual for anything to break that pattern, right? I remember when Tibius from Wave 1 had 4 weapons because he had 2 swords and 2 knives. And it was like, whoa, like an extra weapon that you get. And, even like weird things like, Vetus not coming with shoulder armor. It was like there was such a pattern to what every figure came with early on. And then when we got into the Irithyr wave, I remember opening up Vorthog and just being like, this is such a value. The fact that he had, we started getting 2 heads. 2 heads, there were a bunch of figures in the first wave that had 2 heads, but Vorthog, the fact that he had multiple hands, 2 heads, 2 sets of feet, like it felt like so much in that package. Little did we know that was just a precursor of things to come. I feel like the Poxxus wave, with the addition of these soft goods, these soft goods on these figures, if you aren't going to use them, just opening up a Cimmerian, if you say that I'm not going to use this hooded cape, that is a really high quality hooded cape. If you bought that from one of the wonderful third-party sellers out there that sell those capes, you would pay probably almost as much from those sellers for a cape like that. You probably pay more in some cases, which makes sense. They're individually crafted, they're hand sewn by artists. You should be paying extra for that type of handmade quality versus a factory made, mass produced product. It very much makes sense. But the fact that you are getting those pieces really shows the extreme value that you get in these boxes. spell effects, additional hands. It's top to bottom, there was so much. So as I was playing with it, I was really starting to feel like this wave feels, I don't want to use the word sleeper, but this wave feels like it's not as appreciated as it maybe should be. Those who have it seem to love it, but from the outside looking in, I think that there's people that may not truly appreciate what we're getting here. So what I wanted to do was go through some ideas that I had, some customs I've already done, some customs I've seen online, and then some pop and swaps that I did today to hopefully get people to have some fun ideas, some things that they might want to play around with the Poxxus wave. Going through again the comments here, seeing if there's anything I need to answer. Yeah, Ish, I made a comment about Poxxus at GCon saying how much I loved it. Eric Miller's in the chat, and he's saying Poxxus is my new favorite figure in the line, hands down, league above everyone else. Yeah, and he's a perfect example, Eric, to me, of a fully realized design that also just has wonderful parts that people are using, like those soft goods on that figure. Absolutely so much fun. So let me look at this. Let me show you. Bring this up here, and I guess appropriately, the first one we're going to look at actually is Poxxus. So excuse me, one of the first things I wanted to do with the Poxxus. Now, this one clearly is not just a pop and swap, and we're going to look at that. We're going to look at a mix of custom figures and pop and swaps tonight in the chat here. Just again checking out. If I go quiet for a second, I'm reading comments. Okay. Poxxus is a lich, and he's, this disease type character. Obviously, when Poxxus was developed, 2 years ago, the new upper arms and lower arms, those zombie-like pieces, those were created for Poxxus. The upper arms, he has the gauntlets, but the full body wasn't created at that time. And really, it wasn't a sense of like, oh, we didn't want to invest. The way Poxxus looked is exactly like the design. Like the design of Poxxus, I think I've mentioned before, the Dark Four were designed at the start of Mythic Legions. So 10 years ago, Eric designed all 4 of the Dark Four. So those designs, if you compared those, I'll have to show them someday. If you compare those designs, those sketches to the finals, the only one that's changed a little bit, I would say, is Necronominus, in very slightly. The rest of them, the Poxxus is almost identical. So the original Poxxus design had those fully armored legs. Love it. Think it's a great figure and great choice. But one of the things I got in my head having a Red Death was I'd love to use that Red Death figure to do more of a full body type lich. That rotting look of Red Death really seemed to work well for me personally for Poxxus. So that's what I did here. This is really just combining a Poxxus, a Red Death, and those wings are actually from a Sphexian Block Commander, has the green ones. I could have just used the brown Poxxus wings. Those are great too, but I like keeping like that green kind of color throughout. One thing I did do here, because it uses the Poxxus head and the Poxxus upper arms, but it's got the lower arms and the hands and the full bottom part, the waist and everything from the Mask of the Red Death figure. So I painted all of that green to match Poxxus's head to get that putrid green color. The one thing I did do was on Red Death, I took his waist piece, because the Red Death has not only that loin, but he's also got those wraps. I flipped the wraps upside down so it kind of covers his like midsection type there, so it goes right up to the middle of his chest, because I still wanted to use the Poxxus waist piece with those like the bag and the bug legs. It's such a coolly sculpted piece that I wanted to use that there. So even just something like this, and we're going to get more of these parts with the upcoming zombie figure and so forth. Using these zombie-like parts for Poxxus was something that I really liked, turning him into more of a lich figure. And the cool thing was, by taking those parts off of Poxxus, the soft goods in that torso, I got to use those in other pieces, because those are some pieces that I think are so far proving to be super, super versatile. I'm going to actually jump forward one, and I'm going to talk about that. So this is another custom that I did, and this is I say custom, I use the word custom across the board. Anytime you're mixing and matching pieces, I just use the word custom. It's a kit bash. That's what this absolutely is. Pop and swap kit bash, say whatever you want, call it whatever you want. I just call them all customs. Andy's asking, what kind and color paint did you use? I use Vallejo paint almost exclusively. It's a mix of colors. It's not one specific color. I feel like I actually had posted what those were, but it's a mix of green and yellows. So what I did here is, this is a mix of a Valiant Knight, a Lord Bardrick, Poxxus, and a Xylernian Guard. So the Xylernian Guard lower arms and legs, I really, really like the look of that armor. I like the leather parts, because those have like the leather boots. The Valiant Knight, the parts, the color on the armor of the Xylernian are really close to the Valiant Knight, but obviously the Valiant Knight has fully armored lower legs and lower arms. I wanted to use those leather pieces here, so mixing and matching that worked really, really well, along with that torso piece and those soft goods from Poxxus. Those are pieces that I've seen a ton of people using. I've seen my friend Joe Russo using those a number of times in his night customs. He loves his night customs. They're great new pieces, and that's one of those plug-in chests, right? Those plug-in chests adds even more versatility to this, because you can pop that out, and there's a number of 3D parts creators that have done those plug-in chest plates that allow you to use that torso and get even more looks out of it. In this case, I love this particular look, because I just think it works so well. I'll give you another example. This is a custom that I didn't do. This is actually a custom that my friend David Williams posted. But again, it shows those parts. It shows that Poxxus torso, that Poxxus, like soft goods piece. Here, he mixed this up. I'm going to say that this is probably a Shadow Orc grunt. He painted some new feet for it, and he used that head from the All-Stars 5 heads pack here. But putting that together, I mean, those black arms and legs, I'm saying they came from a Shadow Orc grunt. I'm assuming that because of the armor color, it looks like it's all together. But the black arms and legs that just came out with the Lige figure as well, if you're using the armored, the fact that you can use those black parts for something like this. This uses the Poxxus shoulder pauldrons, another great new part that people are really liking, because I love those pieces because they're asymmetrical. Like, they clearly go together as a set, but they're not identical. The fact that there's, if you look at a lot of the pauldrons, they're actually not identical, but sometimes the differences are subtle enough in the wear that you've got to almost look a little deep at them to see, oh, those are not perfectly symmetrical. It's very rare that things are perfectly symmetrical. These are very not symmetrical. The wear is very obvious between the two of them. And I actually do very much dig that for designs like this. So this is another example of using those parts. And again, I'm looking at this, while he might have painted those feet, that's the only thing that I'm seeing on this particular, figure here that clearly right out of the gate, I'm going to say is probably customized, is probably painted. The one that I showed, there's no paint on this at all. So this is an example. It's a great time to talk about this, because my friends over at the Legions Lounge, they are doing their annual Pop and Swap Stars contest. If you check them out, they had a great show this week, by the way. They look at some in-hand examples of the Gaspar and Garich figures. So if you didn't check that episode out, definitely go do that on 1/6 Shooters YouTube. Really, really cool. But they've got a cool contest going on right now. Don't take this as gospel, because I didn't write the rules. My understanding is you can use up to 3 different figures, Mythic Legions figures or Cosmic Legions or Figure Obscura, 3, 4 Horseman Studios figures. Combine those pieces, no customizing, no painting or anything like that. It's pop and swap. You can use accessory packs too if you want, but you put those together and there's going to be a bunch of cool prizes and, of course, the honor of being a pop and swap star champion. So this is an example. I mean, I'm not entering pop and swap stars, but this is an example of actually combining. Let's see, this is Bardrick, Valiant Knight, Poxxus, and Xylernian God. So this is 4 figures. This one would not qualify, but you can make one at home. So this is another figure that I did. Once again, talking about that Red Death. I love when we get new parts like that because it opens up so many possibilities. That bare body, that is a really cool thing that we haven't had a lot of in the past. The monk that we showed last week for Gaspar the Unamused, the fact that that build really has no armor on it. I had mentioned the only armor is the belt, and it's painted like leather because we didn't have a non-armored belt that would fit right now. But the fact that it's got no lower arm armor, it's got the wraps, no lower leg armor. It's actually got wraps, and the wraps are removable. You could have bare lower legs. I love that ability now because for years, every lower arm and lower leg we had, even once we got bare feet and bare hands, we still really had to have armored pieces here. The wraps for the arms were the first time that we didn't really have that. So with Red Death, that being a, essentially a fully bare unarmored body opens up some possibilities. This was one that as soon as I saw Samir's alternate head with those runes kind of painted on it, those magic effects, it really, really read to me as like an Indian holy man. Samir was meant to be Indian. That's the character, the sculpture, the kind of look that Eric was going for with Samir was of, Indian descent. So it makes a lot of sense that I made that connection. But those like Indian holy men, which are very, very fascinating. When I did this custom, I did a little bit of reading on them, kind of the stuff they go through and the deprivation they put their bodies through in the name of their spirituality is incredibly intense. But this is a Red Death body, essentially head to toe, that I painted to match Samir's flesh color. So the original Red Death is like grayish, right? This is painted that fleshy type color here to match Samir. I used Monkey King's beads. The loin is from Red Death. I just painted it orange, and then it actually uses Red Death's outer robes to create that look here. So then again, this is another example. This is not just a quick pop and swap. There's a fair amount of painting here, but these parts, would not be possible. This type of a custom would not be possible without the stuff that we got in the Poxxus wave. So just another example of being inspired by this wave, being inspired by these parts. Talking about being inspired and talking about shows, another show that I checked out this week that was a lot of fun was the most recent episode of Shooting the Shelf. Shooting the Shelf had on Mira this week, who, as we're talking about customizing, she's someone that has absolutely jumped into customizing. If you guys are in the community, if you're in the Cabal, certainly if you're in the Sunday Customizing Studio, Mira. Jesse, Curtis, and Mira had a wonderful conversation filled with just absolute energy and light. Go check that out. You should check out that show anyway. It's a lot of fun. But this particular week was really, really a ray of sunshine. Just hearing her energy and everything. And I mean, I don't talk about my family a ton, but I have a family. I have a young daughter. To hear how often Mara talked about the things she did in this hobby with her father, my father and I did this and did that. It warmed my heart, and it made me very, very happy to see that the hobby is, giving her and her family, her father, something to do together. So check that show out. A lot of fun. Enjoyed it a lot. Going to go through these here. So talking about the Poxxus wave as a whole, the horses don't get a ton of customization. I know that I don't do a lot of customization with the horses, but interestingly, when I got this particular wave and the Flogius figure, one of the first customs I did was what we see here, where this is what's called a brook horse. So I have a book, and I can bring the book up. I'm going to go and find it. I got to think of what it's called. Can't think of what the book is called right now. My friend Eric Bachman gave me a really, really cool book about like all kinds of like Celtic folklore. It was really, I can't think of what it's called right now. Darn it. I don't think Eric's in the chat either. Anyway, it's a really cool book. And this particular image here was actually in the book. As soon as I saw this, I just thought this was a really cool looking character, this brook horse type thing. And I read the description and it actually said that, brook horses are often white and stuff, but sometimes they can appear black with like whitish, greenish hair. And the photo they showed was exactly that. It was a black horse with that whitish, greenish hair. So immediately I looked at this, and it's funny that sometimes I will see things that I like, designs that I like, and my brain immediately starts saying, what Legions parts would I need to put that together? It is similar to a Kelpie. I think Kelpie is another word that they use for it. The book called it a brook horse, but I believe a Kelpie is a very similar, if not the same, one thing for the same word. Yeah, I think that's what it's called. Greg, let me see. I'm going to look that up. See if I can find it. Okay, so that is, I don't see the book here. I think it might be this. So I think this might be the book. It's called Vassin. It's by an artist named Johan Egerkrans. Dude, I'm so sorry. I know I just butchered your name. But this was the one that he got me. It's a super, super cool book of this, like spirits and monsters of Scandinavian folklore. I said Irish, it's Scandinavian. It's an absolutely super, super cool book. I loved it. And this was one of the characters in it. So this is literally just a Headless Horseman, the retailer exclusive glow figure. It's just that horse with the mane and tail from the Flogius figure from the Poxxus wave. Absolutely super, super easy to do. I did a tiny, tiny bit of dry brushing of white into the hair and tail. Totally optional. If you just put that hair and tail on it, it would work super, super cool. Doing that, you end up with some horse armor because Flogius does come with the horse armor. So that was pretty cool as well. Just wanted to show that because, again, you don't see a ton of horse customs. Eric Miller said he's done a few horse customs. They're very challenging. They definitely are. There's a lot to paint there. So this is a custom that I did not do. This is another one by, I believe, David Williams. So David didn't post this one. Somebody else posted it, but in it, he said that David had actually painted it. When I found this photo, I wasn't looking for this photo. I was actually looking for some others that I think Joe Suter might have done. And there are some in here from Joe Suter. I have a few of his. But one that I couldn't find was he had done one that he had used the Calazir body as like a frost brute. And I really, really dug that. But what I liked here was this combined not only the Calazir body, the fact that it's got the wraps, it's got that waist piece, it's got the shoulders, all of the pieces from Tharnog the Shaman, they work really well as this frost brute type character. So I thought this looked really cool, but it's a perfect example. There's a custom head on here. That custom head is clearly painted, but the rest of this is not painted. So much so that if you actually look at the ankles still have that coppery armor color from Calazir. So they're not even painted to match the wraps. And I don't point that out as a negative. I'm just saying that this still looks awesome, and there's a minimal amount of paint on it. It's only on the head. It's a great paint job on the head, don't get me wrong, but I'm trying to show that just with popping and swapping some figures, 90% of this is popping and swapping with those figures, and then that awesome custom head. Joseph Connors, I think that's who it was. Yeah, David painted the head, and Joseph Connors put together the rest of the body. That seems to make sense. I absolutely love it. I think Joseph did a wonderful job with that recipe and putting this together. The brutes are a fun one because prior to this wave, all we had for brutes was the upper body of Aetherius, right? And interestingly, all of the brute parts, I don't know if everyone's aware of this, brute parts are totally 1.0 compatible. There's actually an article on the website that shows 1.0 compared to brute compared to ogre. Ogre is way bigger. Like ogre is not only is it not compatible, it's gigantic. Brute and 1.0, they're pretty close to each other. They're not that different. Side by side, you can certainly tell. And what I had said before is if you stand a brute up next to a 1.0, it looks significantly bigger, but it's because it's the culmination of all of the parts being bigger. So the lower legs are a little bigger, the upper legs are a little bigger, the torso is a little bigger, every part of it's a little bit bigger. And when you put it all together, it actually adds up to a bit of a higher size. But if you just take one of those pieces, like if you just take that upper brute body, and I saw people do this with Aetherius, where they would put the upper brute torso on 1.0 lower legs, it works. It makes that upper body look like oversized big, but for a giant fantasy brute type character, it's not inappropriate. So the Tharnog figure in Kalazir is the first time, besides Canuck's Vol in Cosmic Legions, that we've got the full brute build to work with, and we're already seeing people do super cool things like this. So back to the Poxxus parts. This is one that my friend Patrick Boyle put together. So Patrick, I believe this head is from Wolf King Customs, this undead pirate head, but super cool turning. I love the fact that with just that one change, just the head on this, it turns it from the undead lich Poxxus into this cool skeleton pirate. I love that just with that one change and that paint job to match, this is already a very well realized recipe and custom together. So I saw this as I was scrolling today looking for Poxxus wave photos, and I had to include this one because I thought it was just a really smart little design there. Here we go. So Joe Suter. Joe, I feel like Joe was one of the first ones to get the Poxxus wave, and he went plumb crazy just popping and swapping parts. And almost everything he posted was super cool. I had to limit myself to only a couple of his posts because this entire episode probably could have been filled with Joe Suter's different pop and swap posts. This is one that I particularly liked only because Imbera Jimjera from the Cosmic Legions Grave Knight wave gets so much grief. It's a really cool figure. I really do like the figure. He did two different ones. This is, I think he called this Sand Wasp, and he also did Sand Scorpion, where he used no wings, and he actually used the scorpion tail. But this is a combination of obviously the Imbera parts, all the scorpion yellow parts from Imbera. It also uses the Poxxus waist piece and skirt and the Poxxus neck scarf. And then the armor, I'm not sure what 2.0 figure the armor is from, but some 2.0 figure. It might have been the skeleton builder or something. Those are included here as well. And I just love the way this looks together. This creates such a cool character. When Imbera was first shown, a lot of people said they could imagine Imbera being a Mythic Legions figure if it weren't for some of the more technical armor. So I think Joe did a great job of realizing that type of a feel here with this pop and swap. Yeah, and Joe pointed out this is just one figure's worth of parts over the pop and swap limit. So another one that Joe did, and again, I had to limit myself, but this uses Irazak, but with some parts from Red Death. Love seeing the Red Death robe parts. I've seen a lot of people using that with the Poxxus wave, which works really well. The fact that this wasn't intentional, like when the Poxxus wave was designed, Red Death, that hadn't even been considered. So it's just a lucky byproduct, I guess, that the soft goods on Red Death, which work really well alongside the Poxxus wave, are available at a similar time to the Poxxus figures. But Joe did a really good job here. I love the fact that, you know, he's got one armored arm, but then the arm that's holding the spell, the magical staff, looks like withered and decayed, and it's all red and stuff. So right there, that combination of parts tells a story to me right there with just the pieces he used. And again, Joe can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's no paints on these. These are just pop and swap pieces. I was talking about using the upper brute body with 1.0 legs. Joe did it right here. I can show you exactly what that means or what that looks like. So this is that Apherius upper body with that waist piece from Tharnog and those lower legs. It's the orange pants probably that came with Lord Bardrick, and then some of those spiky lower legs here. Really, really cool. You can see that upper body. It looks big, like it looks big and hefty, but not out of place. It doesn't look disproportionately large. Like if you put an ogre, well, the ogre body doesn't snap in, but if you tried to put it there, it would look ridiculously oversized. We're not getting that here. So this is just popping and swapping. And these, you know, these last few don't only use Poxxus wave parts, but that waist piece here that really ties that together, that's absolutely a Poxxus wave piece. This magic user here, that staff, that magic user head, Poxxus wave pieces, Poxxus wave pieces. So showing these different types of pieces that are really allowing you to expand the types of customs, the types of kit bashes that you can do. Wonderful work, Joe. Thank you for sharing those in the Cabal. Now, let's turn to some of the figures that I did today. So these are going to use more Poxxus wave parts. This is not one of them. This is a custom that I did a number of years ago. So this uses, there's been a number of people out there that have done these cephalad type heads. They're very reminiscent of Mind Flayers. So Mind Flayer is a kind of character that it's a Dungeons and Dragons thing, right? The D&D owns that. So, you know, you're never going to see a Mind Flayer in, you know, Mythic Legions, because that is, unlike some like elves and dwarves, those, nobody owns those, right? Mind Flayer is something that was created specifically for Dungeons and Dragons, so you won't see that. But there have been a number of people that have done very Cthulhu-like type heads. It seems like every 3D printer has their take on it, which is cool because there's a lot of different variety out there. But those Cthulhu-like heads, this one is actually called Squid Head. Those squid heads, those Cthulhu heads, they work really well as a fill-in for a Mind Flayer, should you want one of those for your collection. This is one I did a number of years ago when Len first released that head. And yes, it's purple. It's got a bunch of purple in there. This uses parts that unfortunately are not easy to come by today. This uses a Vampire Knight body. You don't see it in this picture, but I actually have this. This one's still in my collection, and it's actually got Lucretia's neck piece, collar piece that's on it right now as well. Really easy recipe, but hard to get parts. So one of the things I love with this particular wave, and I'm going to do a video, hopefully I can shoot it tomorrow, kind of with this recipe, step-by-step recipe for this, because the parts exist in the Poxxus wave to really make a cool Mind Flayer type stand-in for you right now. All this is the Arazak body. So if you look at a lot of depictions of Mind Flayers, they tend to have like black and purple robes. They tend to have big collars with their squid-like heads. So the Arazak body with that collar piece works wonderfully well here. All that I did, this uses that same squid head from Wolf King Customs. I painted that up. I just based it out in black, dry brush on some purple, and then did another bit of dry brushing with a little bit of metallics. I did metallic red on the eyes. The previous one I had done white eyes. This one I did this like metallic pinkish red. The hands on this are actually from Iacipedian. So because I wanted him to have like long, oversized, kind of creepy hands, the Iacipedian figure is a 2.0 figure. The great thing about that figure is it comes with multiple hands, and I have multiple of them, so I have a bag of them lying around. Being able to use those expressive Ias hands, I think really adds a lot here. I also use 1.0 feet on this just because they added to the creepiness factor, and I like the look of that oversized feet on these type of weird figures. But you could have absolutely just kept the original Arazak. But this is a really, really easy build, and this is one of those, the reason I'm going to shoot the video on it is this is one of those custom projects that literally anybody can do. There is a little bit of painting involved, but it's such easy painting to do that this is the type of project that when someone does it, when someone kicks it off and sees their end result, this is the type of project that gets them to be like, this is cool. Like, this added something to my collection that I know and I'm excited about and I like, and it was super easy to do. This is when you open the doors to them saying, I can customize. This is awesome. I can do this. And anybody that's seen me at a show that has told me that they got started by painting the dots, this is, to me, a similar type of project. So really easy, totally accomplishable with the Alithia Wave. Instead of having to say, like this one, this is literally a Vampire Knight body with a skirt piece from a Star Wars Black Series Kylo Ren that you had to trim in a very specific way to get it to fit. It's also got, again, mine has the Lucretia Kala on it. The hands on mine are actually from a NECA Ultimate Predator. It's like 5 different figures worth of parts to be able to do something like this, to get an Arazak, 1 custom head, and if you've already got the Ias, grabbing some extra hands. And again, if you don't have the Ias, you could have used the Arazak hands and just painted them, purple if you wanted. I just like the creepiness of these, and they're pretty easy to come by. So that's one that I really, really like. Did that today. This is one I did a while ago. This is one of my all-time favorite customs. This is Death from Neil Gaiman's Sandman. I debuted this at Legions Con last year. Now, this uses a Thrace Wraithhaler head. This actually uses a prototype Thrace Wraithhaler head that I had them print for me so I could get it out for Legions Con. But the reason I'm showing this is an Alithia body. The Thrace head matches the Alithia body. People have been doing really, really cool swaps with that. And the great thing is if you use the Thrace head on the Alithia body, you end up with a Thrace body. Everyone is focusing on that Thrace head and how wonderful it is, but I really love that Thrace body. This is super simple. This is a Thrace body with a Dubon cape and a head from Delphina of Etheros, okay? Hard figure to find, totally get it. This exact same head with a different color here is in the All-Stars 5 heads pack. You could put it with red here, you could paint the hair black, and you could have something similar. But this, you all know how much I love my Dungeons & Dragons thief rogue type characters. This is super easy to accomplish. No paint on this. Couple daggers that I got from my fodder bin here, tucked into her belt. Throw that cape on, pop that head on, and you've got a very classic rogue assassin type figure right here. Super easy. So again, this was my death. This does have a fair amount of paint on it and stuff. But if you did want to execute a death, the Thrace figure, the Thrace head now that is out, you'd have to paint the hair and everything. You'd have to add that little bit on her eye. You could totally execute that. Now that the head is actually out there, this is a very doable custom to make. And it'll end you up with that body. So really dig that there. So I was playing around. I was using a Zende figure today, and I had the head, and I was like, what am I going to do with this head? And everyone's been talking about pirates lately. This was a custom. So I know that when we released Jacob Marley, a lot of people went pirate crazy, right? They used those parts to make their swashbucklers. This is something that I did so many years ago. This was a very early custom, so much so that the lower legs on this are from a Masters of the Universe Classics Eldor figure, because I wanted those pirate style boots, and they didn't exist in Legions at all. And this was long before 3D printers were making stuff like that. So this was something that I put together many, many years ago. I'm trying to remember where the skirt part is from, because the torso is just that 1.0 like tunic torso. I know the coat and the belt are from a NECA Pirates of the Caribbean figure, as is the hat. Interestingly, originally when I put this together, the head that it used, there was a Motu Classics figure called Decker, Dekker, which is also a person of color. So this pirate captain already had that type of look. So today, when I was trying to think about where I could use the Zende head, I saw that custom and I said, you know what? That Zende head would look really, really cool. That's the only change I did. I just popped that on here. So, well, if you were going to make a pirate, you wouldn't do this, but I show this because the parts exist now in the line with the Jacob Marley figure to really execute something very, very similar to this. If you got that Jacob Marley, it's all you would need, right? Jacob Marley figure, it would be a head-to-toe paint job on it, Decker head, a pirate sword, not Decker head, excuse me, a Zende head. You got to find a pirate sword, which not hard to find. There's plenty of them out there. And then a pirate hat. Again, I always like the NECA Pirates of the Caribbean figures for those types of pieces. I used to find them on eBay in like all kinds of horrible shape, but with accessories all the time. You spend a lot less money to get them that way because you're going to tear them apart anyway. So that's my pirate Zende. So this is one I'm excited about. So as I was playing today, one of the things I love about the Poxxus wave is the idea of building out these other magic users. And there were two really great heads that we can use for new magic users that are in the line. They're the heads that come with Father Christmas. So Father Christmas came with two heads, and specifically the retailer exclusive Father Christmas comes with both a white bearded head and a brown bearded head. So I'm going to use both of those in these customs. Now, what this is here, I can tell you, is underneath that body, that is, it's basically a Lord Bardrick. So it's a Lord Bardrick body, which is almost a shame to cover it up like this. But I really liked the lower legs and lower arms, and I just used the rest of it. So it's a Lord Bardrick body, top to bottom on there. The only thing that I did different was the torso. What I did with the torso was, because that blue tunic that's over, that's from a NECA Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles hand figure, like hand ninja. They did one, I think it was a Target exclusive, that came with a bunch of pieces and included this blue tunic. The body for Lord Bardrick, it fit, but it was a little snug. So I had an extra tunic, an extra torso from a Valiant Knight. The Valiant Knight torso is a little thin because it's made to have tunics go over it. All of the new Templar figures and so forth have tunics over it. So what I did was I swapped out that, and I swapped out the skirt piece for a thinner one, just so it wouldn't be as bulky. But other than that, that's what you got under that there. So again, the inner robe that he's wearing, that's from that NECA figure. So that is the one non-mythic piece here. The outer robe is from Samir. So Zende comes with a blue robe, and so does Samir. Zende's is all one color blue. Samir's is 2 colors blue. So interestingly, the inside of Samir's matches that inner robe that I got from NECA. The outer one's a little bit lighter. I just like that two-tone look in this. I thought it worked really well. Besides that, I popped open a accessory pack, and what I'm using here is that book on a chain. I'm using some of those little clip-on pieces. I'm using the scrolls in his belt. Those clip-on pieces they're a game changer. Okay. My friend Dennis Derby had messaged me after he got his order, and he was like, dude, these things are amazing. We need more of these. Those little, just being able to clip them on to little belts and change around, like that belt that's going across his chest, that's just one of those original leather belts that have been in the line for literally ever. They're so nondescript. It's not even like the new belts that have the buckles and everything. There's nothing going on with it, but just being able to add that little, bit of potions on there, it dresses it up and it adds so much to it. You get a look with the head on or the hood off. The staff is a mixture of the lower part was from Arazak, because remember, I used Arazak for that other figure. So lower part is from Arazak, and the top part is the piece that came with Thrace, but that's actually the one from the weapons pack. 2 more pictures of him here. The fact that you can get that look, again, with the hat up, the hood up, or with the hood down, really easy. 0 paint in this, okay? This is something, literally, if you have the parts, anybody can do this. And not only that, the lower body, I used Bardrick. You could use almost anything. It's 90% covered, right? I like the look of what I used with the armored, lower arms and legs with the leather hands and boots. You could use Zende for that, right? Zende has those exact parts. They're copper colored, so they're a little bit different. Those are not difficult parts to find. Yeah, you're going to find that NECA robe, but again, even if you didn't want to use that NECA robe, another thing that would work very similarly is, I talked about the Father Christmas, the retailer exclusive Father Christmas. Underneath Father Christmas's green robes, there's a blue underrobe, right? The original Father Christmas came with a purple underrobe. The new Father Christmas comes with a blue underrobe. That blue underrobe would do a very similar thing here. If you wanted to use that and not get the NECA, you could absolutely do that. Besides that, Father Christmas head and a bunch of accessory pack pieces. This is something that anybody can pop and swap and do this. If you're afraid of painting, if you don't have paints, if you're going to get into painting, it's an investment, right? Because you've got to buy the paints, you've got to buy the brushes and all that stuff. You can get started fairly inexpensively. And I have a video on my channel that is how to get started, like what things I suggest you go buy. It's an older video, but a lot of it's still very, very relevant. You can get started pretty inexpensively, but if you don't want to take that plunge and start painting right away, this is a great way to start with popping and swapping like this. You know what? It's been a while since I've actually gone through the comments. So I was trying to look at them as I go, but let me just check in and see if there's anything I missed. So, comment here from Jordan saying Disney Mirrorverse Jack Sparrow is the new Pirate Hat Honey Hole. Check Ollie. So apparently that's a figure that a lot of people are using for Pirate Hat. So there you go. There's a great option as well. Joe correcting me about the figure that blue robe came from. He said it was the Foot Soldier from NECA, but that was a Target exclusive, and it's from like the Mirage wave. So the ones I have are Mirage figures. It's, you know what? It's actually right here. So it's literally right behind me. It's this figure here. So this figure that I got from Target, it's originally the blue robe came with that figure. Okay, back here. Awesome. So let's see what we got next. Okay, so this is another wizard that I put together. Another one that I dig. So, just realized that I don't have the screen on. There we go. All right, there it is. So this is another one I put together. Once again, zero paint on this. I liked the idea. I wanted to find a way to use the Marley harness, okay? And I like the idea of a member of the School of Ophidian that was weighed down by his knowledge. Like the books he carries around are dragging him down, not in a bad way, but it's one of the things about the magic users of Mythos is they have an incredible burden. Okay, the power that they wield is incredibly it is so much that they have to have constant control. The abilities that they wield are a constant source of needing to be in check. So a visual way to show that actual burden of knowledge was what I was going for here. So what this is, once again, the underbody on this, I could have used the actual, originally I was going to use just the Samare underbody because it is Samare robes. But as I was mixing and matching and popping and swapping, I had a bunch of Zende parts. So I ended up using Zende's underbody on this. So this is Zende's underbody. What I did was I put Samare's brown robe over it. Then I put the head wrap, like kind of hood piece from the Mask of the Red Death. And then I put on the harness from Jacob Marley. Now, what I did do was I cut off all the cash boxes and the safe because he's not carrying around cash boxes in a giant safe. I just wanted the books and the keys. So that is all that's on there right now. The other thing that I did is because this guy would be a member of the library, I gave him that staff. Little bit of lore. That staff is actually going to be tied in that with that particular on top there. We've got other stuff happening where we're kind of attaching that to members of the Library of Agbendor. So the fact that I know that, I thought it was fun to just use that here and to share that information with you today as well. This uses that head with the brown beard from that retailer Father Christmas figure. So there we go. Two other shots there. You can see with the hood down, with the hood up. Once again, zero paint on this figure. This is all just popping and swapping parts to get this look. This is something literally anybody could do. And I can see he's got a little orange under there on his legs. That's right. This uses Zende lower arms and legs. But I said the last one used Bardrick. I got confused. I mixed and matched Zende and Bardrick across those two figures, so I forget which parts I used on which. I think now that I remember, the other one I used Zende's like legs, but with Bardrick's lower arms and legs. I liked the silver parts better with that design, and I liked the copper parts better with this design. Again, so much of it's covered by the robes. You could almost use this. I saw a number of people, including Curtis, that they were taking figures like Irazak, putting the heads and parts and the robes and everything on like cheap Marvel Legends figures because so much of them are covered by the robes anyway that you don't even see the base body underneath it. While this doesn't use a Marvel Legends figure, it's a similar thing where you could put these together. If you have parts in your fodder bins that you don't know how to use, you could actually use them here. Okay, if you have like I've got these upper legs that are all muscly that I don't have matching pieces for. As long as you're okay with the pieces under the body not matching, if you're not going to see them anyway, that's absolutely a little cheat that you could do to use some of those fodder pots, but still get something in your collection, in your display that you're happy with and looks super cool. So this is one I really like. Totally honest, this in this figure I only did for tonight, and I love them both. Like I shared a picture on the Cabal earlier of me in my kitchen with just stuff strewn about everywhere as I was popping and swapping and mixing and matching and doing this stuff for tonight. These were two figures that before this afternoon, I had no idea that I was going to do. I had this idea for the burden of knowledge, but I hadn't hadn't actually visualized, put it together yet. I did those today. It was one of those instances where I was just being creative. Like I didn't know what I was creating. I was just adding parts together, having genuine fun. And the fact that these two figures came out of it made me so incredibly happy. So I'm going to take this down for a minute because I'm not sure how many more I have. Yes. So we are to the last one of the night. So the other thing that I wanted to do as I was putting these together is I said, okay, as I'm putting together these wizards, these magic users, how many purple parts can I use? Can I find a figure that is head to toe purple? So I give you Van Jordan the purple. This magic user is the purplest magic user I could absolutely put together. Every single part of this figure's body is purple. I took a Purplor figure, and because Purplor doesn't have purple armor, I actually used the armor from a Zazar figure for the like lower arms and the lower legs. The feet are from an old Lord of the Rings figure. I actually had a purple Djinn that I had used that I used those feet here. I talked about the inner robe from the Father Christmas figure. This is the inner robe from Father Christmas. What I actually did was the waist sash he has there. The Thrace figure comes with a purple lower skirt and a purple like loin piece, basically. That is the loin piece from Thrace. What I did was I wrapped it around, and because it's wired, I put the end through the hole that's meant to go over the waist and just like literally cinched it through, and it holds perfectly. So that was able to make that nice sash piece there because I didn't want to give him a leather belt that was brown. A brown leather belt is off brand for Van Jordan the purple. So I had to have a purple belt. Obviously he's got Thrace's cape there. He's got his purple head. I even went into the weapons pack to get a purple staff to create this. So Van Jordan the purple, he is absolutely purple, and there is almost no paint in this. The only paint, so again, I had a purple Djinn. What I had done, I drilled holes in his ears to put those rings in, and I had given him that ponytail, which is from like an old Warcraft figure. But besides that little bit of paint on the feet and those modifications on the head, there we go. Yes, this is not the Legions Con Day 2 figure. I am sorry. This is a very special for tonight, Van Jordan the purple. Yes, double consonants. So I will have you know that this is the last one I did. I was racing to get this done right before the show because I had the idea and I just was trying to find the parts to actually make it work. So I thought that this would be a lot of fun. So a little shout out there to my friends from the Purple Gang. Figured that would be a fun way to end the show, or to end the customs that I'm showing. But hopefully that gave you some thoughts about the things that you could do with this wave. You know, if we actually look at the wave, you know, just with those standard figures, right? You know, because if you take, I mean, a Rakagor, Azazar, I didn't do any customizing with them. Ogres are, that's a, you know, story unto itself. Same thing with the brutes. I showed, you know, that one brute thing. But even if we just look at the standard figures, which would be Arazak, Poxxus, Samir Scroll Warder, Thrace Rave Hailer, and Zende, they come with so many parts that you can see that using them in different ways, you end up with so many extra pieces. The fact that I used, you know, going back here, the fact that I used Samir, I wanted to use Samir's inner robe. So I actually did this one first. I did this character before I did this one. I wanted to do, I said, okay, Samir with the blue robe, outer robe, the blue robe, I don't want to say it takes away from the inner robe, but it's such a bold color and it covers so much of him that it becomes a focal point. So I was like, my first thing is I said, okay, I am not going to use the blue robe. I'm going to get rid of the blue robe and I'm going to use, the brown head. Because when I look at Samir, the two things I see are white beard, blue robe. So I said, I'm going to get rid of both of those things. That's how this figure started. And then I just started playing around the idea for the burden of knowledge. That's how this came out. But then I had the blue robe. I said, well, what am I going to do with this now? And the fact that, as I just said, Samir has the blue robe, but not the blue inner, soft goods. I say, well, what if I made a figure that was all blue soft goods? I think that would look pretty cool as well. And that's how this figure came out. So I offer that because as you get some of these figures, if you buy extras of these figures specifically for popping and swapping and customizing, they are a gold mine of parts. That's a big part of the point of tonight. There is such a gold mine of parts available in these figures that if you get one of these figures to use them for popping and swapping, you are going to have so much added to your fodder bin that's going to fuel other customs, other ideas. That's why, to my way of thinking, this is one of the most value-rich waves that we have ever seen in the line. I don't want to say the most value-rich we're ever going to have, because I think that this is the story that we're telling now, right? When you get some of these other figures with all the extra parts that they include, there's going to be so many other things that you can do with them outside of just that figure. It's kind of it's an embarrassment of riches, especially when you consider that the figure prices haven't gone up. So it's not like you're like, well, yeah, we're getting a ton more now, but they doubled the price of the figures. To keep the prices where they are and get all these additional pieces, it allows any toy collector to have more options with what they're going to do and how they're going to display their figures. But for you and I, who may be customizing and popping and swapping, it's going to give us just so many extra parts to work with. So absolutely digging that. That's what I wanted to present tonight. I do have a few minutes left. So with the remaining 15 minutes or so, I am happy to answer any questions that you may have, except for what is that little teaser grid. Not going to answer that. There we go. So hopefully you enjoyed tonight. Hopefully you enjoyed that little trip down, kind of the way we used to do things here, doing a lot more talking about customizing. And we still do the pop and swap shows with Joe and myself. So that kind of kicks it out. But I thought this would be a lot of fun. And I certainly had fun getting ready for tonight. It went from a show that I had no idea what I was going to do to a show that I ended up being very excited to do. So I love that. Joe says, I'm going to start the True Blue Crew. Okay. Very cool. I like that, Joe. Does the Calazir ponytail fit on any other figure? You know what? I haven't tried to actually see if it's the same size, Jordan, as, for instance, the only other figures that I think have plugs like that up there, I think it's a lot bigger than like the orcs that have like the hair plug, like the female orc figure that has the hair plug. It might fit in like the bucket helmet, but the shape of it, it probably would just be weird. I don't know if it would hang down, but I haven't tried it. What's my most anticipated figure personally? I've said before that I'm really excited for Belualith and Beradak. Those two as a pair, I'm really excited for. I'm really excited for the Tuberculi just from a pure popping and swapping standpoint. I think that is going to be an absolute ton of fun. I'm also very excited on the cosmic front. I'm very excited for the Tusk Pilot and the Fisher Rice figure from the retailer wave. Those, off the top of my head, would be some of my most anticipated, Noah. How many Mythic Legions figures are named after people? Quite a few. I mean, there's even some from the earliest days, like Sir Owain is named after Owen Ertling, who used to work at the studio. King Noglin is named after Eric's son Nolan. King Bromden is named after Eric's son Brandon. So there's a lot of them that are named after people. You know, obviously you have some that are more like tribute-y, like Gaspar and Gorich, like top to the Furious Four. Top to bottom, those are like super, super tribute figures. You know, even more so, I would say, than Sir Gerard, right? Because Sir Gerard was the first one I got to be a part of. And I almost didn't know what the possibilities were with that figure. And it's really weird to like be writing about yourself and stuff. Like with Furious 4, I had so much fun creating those characters and their stories around the personalities of the My Wife Is Gonna Kill Me crew. Same thing with Gaspar and Gorich. But there are other figures, like take, for instance, Sir Uxak. So Sir Uxak, like that figure wasn't created. We didn't say, let's do a tribute to Greg. That figure was created. He totally existed. In the process of trying to find a name, the connection to Greg came up because we were looking at different letter formations and putting together those letters. It started to look like, you know, Greg's last name. So then it was like, ooh, we could make this named after Greg. That would be a lot of fun. You know, I've had someone ask me before, like, you know, why we name so many figures after people. And the way I always look at it is we've got to name them something. Like they've got to have some names. So just coming up, and some of them just have random names, right? Some of them have names that tie into some kind of mythological story, or there's a lot of different ways we name characters. But when there's an opportunity to have a fun character name that's a nod to, you know, a friend or a fan or a member of the studio, that's always enjoyable. I mean, if we have to name something, you know, Sir Uxak or Sir whatever weird name we would have come up with, I would love to give it a name that has a little extra meaning because it's a fun nod to somebody who's in our life who we're honored to be able to, you know, give that little name to. There we go. So there's a lot. That was a little bit of a rant, V-Dog. But the short answer is there's quite a few of them that have some connection like that. Is there a part that I'd really like to have that isn't available yet? Yeah, there's tons of parts that I'd really love to have that aren't available yet. What would they be? I mean, again, I love the rogues, so I still would like to have more leather armor, more like super heavy armor type parts. Any of those are always enjoyable to me. Curtis says, why did we go with the plastic loin piece but a soft goods waist piece on the Gaspar figure? We had to put some loin piece there. I guess we could have done a fabric one there. I really like that plastic one that it came with. Originally, it was supposed to come with both that one and like the waist was supposed to be the waist part from Red Death as well. But as we talked about, the Red Death waist part was too small. It just didn't work right. So a mix of plastic and soft goods is something that we've done a number of times. Now that I have all the Inhumanoids, do I have any other toys I'm chasing? Not off the top of my head. I would love a Shogun Warriors Guy King, but they're pretty expensive. So I'm going to treat that the way I did the Godzilla. If I find one at a decent price in a decent condition, I'll pick that up. I would also consider picking up a few of the other Inhumanoids characters if I found them, but the three actual Inhumanoids were the main ones I wanted. For a while, I was looking for a Hot Toys Vintage Colors Boba Fett, and I got one from Door Clear this week. That was super cool. I am looking, actually, there is one thing I'm looking for. The Fisher-Price Adventure People's Brainoid. So I did a custom a few weeks ago of the Fisher-Price Brainoid figure. That's one I want. I've got most of the other Adventure People I want, but Brainoid is one that there's some on eBay. They're just more than I want to pay. So I'll hunt it down eventually. Curtis, I'm actually not going to start collecting Battle Beasts. I did buy a Battle Beast at Toylanta. I bought the Turtle hardtop, which is the only one I had as a kid. It's one I did a custom of. I wanted to have hardtop to go alongside my custom. There were a ton of Battle Beasts at Toylanta. I could have gone plumb crazy picking those up. I love them. I think they're super cool. But for me, because I didn't play with them as a kid, I didn't have them as a kid, I don't have that connection. So it's easy for me to say that's a hole I don't need to go down because I don't have that nostalgia factor for them. So we'll see. I do actually in the other room have a Mezco Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle set that I haven't opened yet. It looks amazing, but I don't have any room for it. So I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to put it because everything I've read about it and seen photos of is it is absolutely the most amazing set. So I'm trying to figure out what I have to move or get rid of to make room for that. Is there a figure that I've used its parts more than any other for customs? Probably Goblin Legion Builder. I have bought so many Goblin Legion Builders because there was a point that I was doing so many critter customs, and the Goblin Legion Builders just worked great for that. Prior to that, I had done a ton of Goblin customs. So again, that worked really well. It was also a point where they were very, very plentiful. So I bought a ton of them over the years. Before I was working at Full Horseman Studios full time, there was a point that I would buy like a dozen at a time from Big Bad Toy Store, a point where they would just flush with those figures. So that figure is probably the one that I used a ton. What was my favorite band in high school? Probably Pantera. Oddly enough, it was either Pantera or the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones. Those would be the two that I would say. Is there one custom I keep going back to tweak and update as new parts come out? Not off the top of my head. I've certainly done that, but there's none that I've done repeatedly recently that come to mind. But I've done it many times for sure. Yeah, so Jordan, I just mentioned that. So I just picked up a lot of Adventure People that had a couple of the ones I was missing. It had Clawtron in it that I really wanted. It had the X-Ray Man. It had a couple extras of stuff I already had, but the Brainoid that I did a custom of. Brainoid is the only one that I don't have that I really, really want. Yeah, Curtis saying that Mezco TMNT set is fire. It looks really, really good. 212 days to Legions Con. Thank you very much for that reminder. Yeah, it literally. So today's the 10th. Literally 7 months from yesterday, because it's November 9th and 10th. So 7 months from yesterday was day one. 7 months, sadly, 7 months from now, it'll be over. It'll be the end of Legions Con day 2. But we've got a lot of time before we get there. Those tickets are available, by the way. Let me bring that up. Those tickets are available at legionscon.com. Obviously, we had a big flurry that first week we put them on. They've slowed a little bit, so they're not climbing as much. We still have plenty of them available, but we definitely have sold quite a few. We are excited for this. If you haven't picked up your tickets, please grab them in the coming weeks from legionscon.com. Having them pre-sold just gives us an idea of what to expect and knowing how many people are going to be coming. And Chris is asking how they are at the reveal. Yeah, we got a spike after the reveal. I'm sure that when we reveal day 2, which probably next month, probably in May, we're going to reveal day 2. We've got a little bit of stuff that we want to do with that to get ready for that. So plus we have other stuff to surprise you with first. Anyway. I love this hashtag Amber for a day. The fact that everyone is expecting that Amber is going to get her name pulled again. We'll see. She has been very, very lucky. So we'll see again. What does a shopping experience like we've never seen mean? Have to wait and see. It's going to be something pretty cool. I'm excited for it. Okay. Andy saying, please, we need more goblins. Yeah, I love the goblins. Oh, people saying Walk from Pantera. Yeah, Walk was one of my favorites. I think Mouth for War probably would be my favorite if I had to pick one. So Kirby saying, with the printer used to make the life-size Zeri and Olek, what would it take to get Noglin's or Bromden's crown printed up life-size? Yeah, I mean, certainly could be done. I'm trying to think if those exist as digital files, because those are early figures. So I'm not sure if those exist as digital files the way that like the Zeri and Olek pieces actually do. I don't know. I've always thought that would be cool. I've always thought the idea of like life-size props, it would be a neat thing. Seeing Paul Sutt's Aether Blade that he did, which is now in the studio, like that's a perfect example of a 1/1 scale accessory prop that looks very, very cool. Yeah, Curtis, that's what I had just answered. The OG Goblin Builder is the figure I've bought the most of. Hands down. Like there's after that, I can't even think of what the one after that would be, but it's not even close. Like that is the one that I have used the most of. I've actually used a lot of Furious 4 figures as well. Those black and red bodies and the combination of parts, just such a gift. They work so well. So those might be below the Goblin, but probably half as many, if it, not even close, not even half. The Goblin is by far the most. I kid you not, I've probably bought 200 Goblin Legion builders over the years. How do I feel about the slides of the hilt in relation to the blade? Dude, I haven't seen it in a while. It was kind of overwhelming getting it like presented at Legions Con, so I haven't held it in a while. So I can't really speak to that without seeing it again. So with that, it is now 9 o'clock. I think I'm going to call it a night. Unfortunately, I will not be here next week. So next week, I'm actually taking a genuine vacation, a family vacation. So I will be away next Wednesday. The plan is to be back the following Wednesday. So I will not be here next week. But because I won't be here next Wednesday, we're going to see about doing something, a little surprise thing, hopefully early next week to maybe reveal, I don't know, some mysteries to all of you that are hanging out in Mythos, wondering what the heck we are up to. Thank you all very much for hanging out with me this evening. Everyone, be cool to each other. Be positive. These are toys. Let's have some fun. I will see you in a few weeks.